Hi, you
Ooh.
guys. Oh my God, here we all are. Do you guys know
Ooh.
that it's a historical day? It's the eve before the stock market crashed.
Jesus, that's
October.
a cheery note.
Just so you know, just so
All
you
these like stock market people that showed up on this call, like really
know.
watching the markets.
I think more than just the stock market people were affected that day. I think it was
True,
like
true.
the whole country went up in smoke. So it's a good night to like remember all the people that are important to you and also remember all the things that you want to do that you've never done before and make a little list and start doing them just in case the world starts to fall apart, which we're always like a little worried the world's gonna fall apart anyway. I think it's like it's like a constant sort of worry. So it's just a reminder that might as well just throw caution to the wind. Hi, you guys. Can you put in the chat like why you're here, what you want to know today, why you came, all those things, where you're coming from, whatever you want. Put it in the chat. I love to start the chat off, really. I'll put my chat in. I'm in Harlem, New York City. Okay, came to see your smiling faces. Hi, Vicky. Happy welcome home and from away abroad. Upper West Side. Hi, Liz. That's where Terry is too. And Sheena Cook, I love Daisy. I hope you love me too, Sheena. I'm here because I'm writing a memoir. Yay! I'm joining from Port Moody, Canada. Hi, Amanda Aaron. Midtown New York. Daisy's coming from Ken's office, her hubby. Miami, hi Monica. We were just at retreat together. LA, hi Abigail. Vermont, hi Juliet. She loves your book days. Cambridge, Mass, one of my favorite little villages. New Jersey, hi Kimmy Nagy. LA, Lisa. Pam Suchman, hi Santa Monica. How are you, hun? Sherry Smith, the Channel Islands. Oh my God, I love it. Indiana. Hi, Leslie. She loves Daisy too. Heather Johnson. Hi, Heather. It's so good to see you. I love all your posts from Michigan. Connie, hi, love. New Hampshire. She was also at retreat this weekend. We had so much fun, you guys. We had such good weather. Actually, it was not this past weekend, but the weekend before. Oh my God, Federico, Germany. I haven't introduced you to Keith H. Brown yet because he's on book launch, and I know he's been so busy that it'll get lost, but I plan to do that. Hi, Heidi from North Carolina, Andover, Mass. Hey, Molly. I just talked to you. It was such a good conversation. You're gonna finally meet Daisy I was talking about. Bridget, hi from Chicago. Wow, lots going on in Chicago. Washington State. Hi, Serena. Hi, Houston. Lynette. Austin. Hey, Kristen. I love Austin. Garrison. I love Daisy's book. Yes. And Rancho Mirage, California. Brewster, New York. Dallas. Hi, how are you? Melissa Dugan, also on retreat with us. Hey, Angie Lincoln Center. I'm right down the road from you. And Bianca, hi, love from Florida. Okay, so we are all over the place. Oh my God, Rome, Italy. Hi, Elizabeth.
Ooh.
I know. Elizabeth Barron, you met her. Terry, Salinas. Oh my God. So you guys, I've been so excited for this because in my mind, Daisy's trajectory as a writer mirrors so much what we can do as writers. And when I first met her, I don't know if you guys saw my emails, but for those of you who don't know, I run a literary arts organization called Gateless Writing, and we do a postgraduate program called the Gateless Academy, and we help writers build their books in it. We do retreats, we do the teacher training for career writers, all of that. And Daisy came to me in retreat, and Daisy, you were writing like mostly memoir then.
Yeah, I was writing like personal essays. I started out as like a mom blogger because that was, what you did when you were like trapped in the house in 2012. And was like, I'm gonna make $1 million as a mom blogger. Mom blogging rocks. Yeah. Um, And actually, the funny thing is, Catherine Newman, who has like her book came out Wreck, and she wrote Sandwich, which is the New York Times bestseller. Like, I've been following her for probably 20 years. She was like the ultimate mom blogger who's become New York Times bestselling. Good morning. She was on Good Morning America yesterday, and I'm like, so that mom blogging does lead somewhere. But anyway, yeah. So I was doing mom blogging, and then I quickly shifted into writing about myself because I was like, oh, I don't want to write about my kids anymore. Or I didn't feel like I could write about my kids really anymore. And so I started to write about myself. And that was when I came to you because a friend of mine was like, I met Suzanne and you have to meet Suzanne. She got me writing again after being stalled in an MFA program, Diana. And I was like, okay, I'll give it a try. So I came to you not really knowing what we were going to do or what I wanted to do. But there are like very few like decisions I've made in my life that like really changed my life. And that decision to just like come and on a whim and just, you know, come on this retreat. I didn't know you. I didn't know anyone who was going to be there. I just like drove up in my car. Um, and it really just changed everything. Yes, to acting on a whim. Yes.
Yeah, yes, to act on a whim. And also you knew that you wanted to build your life around writing in some way. I mean,
Yeah.
back then you were
Yeah.
doing editing, the essays, you were doing
Yep.
all sorts of, you were finding your way really as a
Yeah.
writer. And I remember feeling that you had a novel in you whenever you were reading. But, one of the things that I wonder about, Days, and I've noticed is that you kind of have to write, sometimes you have to write nonfiction kind of to get there. Like, do you feel like it was sort of like an emptying out almost of like, oh, I'm going to get this stuff out and then the story is going to rise? Or, I mean, I'm sure you didn't know that at the time, but when you look back and you think about like, especially, when you were just letting yourself write the nonfiction, what did you feel about that process of finding the fiction?
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple of things happened. Like, first, I would write these like essays that were like 6,000 words or something, and like just it's hard to like place them, right? Like, it was if I was trying to place an essay, you know, like online, and I was like, here it is, it's like 5,800 words, like it's hard to place. So I was definitely like writing long. And also the essays like they really were kind of like small pieces of fiction in a way, or they were developed more like fiction. And so I wasn't really aware of it at the time, but I sort of wrote all these essays. I was like, oh, I'm going to write about all my ex-boyfriends and then I'll be done. And the second retreat I went on, so I met you in the first retreat, and then 6 months later, I went on a second retreat, and that was where I started writing the novel. And I
Yeah.
had never in my life thought I would write a novel. I actually did not think I was a fiction writer. I was like, I don't have a good imagination. I'm not like woohoo, like creative, like creating things out of like I just didn't think that that was who I was. Um, but I very quickly felt like there was more I wanted to say about like the time of my life that I was writing essays about was like my college years and relationships and the 90s and what it felt
Mm.
like to be a person like me on a campus like the school that I went to and different like power imbalances that I felt. And I wouldn't have written a memoir about any of it because none of it like it wasn't like I had this like story in me that was a memoir. But the essays after a while I felt like there was more I wanted to say, things that hadn't happened to me, things that I had just observed, things I wanted to say about culture and the 90s and everything. So um but I think that looking back at the essays, I was really like laying the groundwork in my essays that sort of prepped me. So I already knew my sense of place. I already knew like certain character plot points that I wanted to hit through the essay writing, which helped me then build the novel.
Yeah, I remember that was in North Carolina, right? The retreat in North Carolina that you
Yes.
started to do the fiction. Yeah, I remember
Yes.
that. And I remember thinking that, like, if this emotion that's so strong and so palpable in the nonfiction makes its way into fiction, that's kind of, it doesn't even matter like what she does with the players or with the plot, or with the time. I mean, it's awesome to have you want to like experiment with all those pieces, elements, but in a way, because you had that emotional sort of veracity there, it
Mm.
felt like you could go anywhere. It was almost like you touched something in the nonfiction, which was the emotional truth. And then it felt like you started to bring in these other elements of craft, which were like, yeah, like character build and like where was it going to be set. And I remember talking
Hmm.
to you about all those decisions, which get to be decisions when you're in fiction.
Yes, yes. Definitely. I mean, I think sometimes people are like, oh, is it an autobiographical novel? And it's not an autobiographical novel, but the emotions are true. Like, right? Like, it's like I kind of wanted to write about these feelings, and then I just like built a story around it. It was like at one point I went to like pitch my novel to an agent. Like, I signed up for some weekend and you could like pitch the novel to an agent. And I was like, blah, blah, blah. And she was like, what's the climax? And I was like, I have no idea. Like I had no idea because I didn't like even have that yet. I'd been like working on it for like 3 years, and you know what I mean. But it was like those were the kinds of questions I had to figure it out later. I was like, "What's the climax?" Interesting. She was like said to me, "Whatever the climax is, the main character has to be like involved with it." So at that time, like I had an idea of the climax, but my main character was just like an observer to it all. So I had to actually like was like, okay, how can I wedge her in to like make her responsible for the climax. So it's like little things like that that you figure out along the way. And then what you've always said to me, and I always say to other people, it's like the work is really flexible. Like, oh, you want to like take this character out? Okay. Oh, you want to kill her? Oh, let's bring her back to life. Like, it's like you can really just like do anything with the work.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it feels like with the craft of the work, like with moving craft into the novel structure, that was kind of how you, like, it was like you had this incredibly beautiful amount of pages and yeah, these scenes and this emotion and everything. And then craft was the way. And when I sent out the email to everyone, I was like, there's one thing that you really need, if you're going to do
Yeah.
this. And it really is
Yeah.
craft. And it felt like once, and that you were in the first academy class because the
Yeah.
academy really gives you that. And it's almost like you have this huge channel, which is like all of the emotion, all of the pages, these ideas and everything. And then craft kind of puts it into an order and finds the
Yes.
structure for you, finds what to do with time, finds how to begin and end scenes. And when
Yes.
you started playing with craft, did you feel like you had agency, or was it like, oh my God, there's so much craft, like I'm gonna have to get to know this language and then I'll use it? Or how did you?
I mean, it was all like the academy, you get these like these audio modules, like lessons kind of that you listen to in your own time. And they all just made like so much sense to me. Like they were so clear. And you would give like an example, like dialogue or how a scene begins or character or arcs. And it all felt really intuitive and natural to me because I've always been a reader, as I'm sure like most of the people on this call are like reading novels. Like we were out playing tennis last couple weeks ago. This is an aside, and I am a horrendous tennis player. I'm like a horrendous athlete, and my husband knows that about me. And I'm like, you know this about me, but I felt like he was still getting annoyed with me. And I was like, okay, because like all that time in your childhood that you were playing with balls and throwing balls and catching balls and kicking balls, I was never touching balls and I was reading novels, right? So it's like you were just like always reading novels. And I'm sure many of you on this call are like that. And anyway, so it's but once you have like you learn that, and I don't have like an MFA and I wasn't an English major, so I don't know that I had ever really thought about books in that way. But once it's sort of like revealed to you and the light is shined on it all, you're like, oh, of course, like that's a great novel opening. Like sometimes now, like I'm at a place like right at this moment where I'm not reading novels. Like the past few weeks, I'm only reading like nonfiction and memoir. because I'm sort of like deep in trying to figure out. I know I was never touching balls. I knew Sheena was gonna love that line. Yeah. I know. She was like cracking up.
Oh,
I
double
know. Yeah.
entendre.
I know. I know. I know. I heard it when I said it. Yeah. Um, but anyway, I can't read novels right now because it's almost like it feels like work to me. Like it's all like just too in my face. Like, oh my God, she started the scene so well and he finished it so well. And I just need to like not have that in my head at this like particular juncture. But yes, because like once you see it, you can't not see it. And you'll realize that you've been like seeing it your whole life. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the thing is like, oh, this now I know what to do with it. Like I was talking to
Yeah.
Molly that I did, the woman I told you about earlier who's joining the academy to work on her
Yeah.
book. She was like, I was like, it's sort of like before you have that craft, it's like you're sitting in the back seat and somebody's driving you, which is
Yes.
your
Yes.
urge to write. And then once you get that craft, you're sitting in the, in the driving.
Yeah. And you want to, like as we were saying, like once you sign with an agent, they'll say, okay, I want you to make this edit, or I want you to do this edit, this revision, and so you have to be able to do it. Or they say like, okay, I think you need like one more scene where we see the mother, and and you have to be able to just like write it and know where it goes. So the more sort of craft lessons you have, the more solid grounding you have in character and dialogue, and you know all these structural things, um the more power you have and the more confident you're going to be like taking your novel out to sale, or revising it for an editor. You just want it to feel like really really sturdy. I mean, I talk to a lot of writers who want to send their books out to query agents, and it's like you just want to bring your book to like as far as you can take it before you do that.
Yeah.
And people always ask me like, well, how do I know like when that is? And it's like you just kind of know. Like I it's like such an annoying answer, but it's like someone told me like, if you can see the problems, like if you know what the problems are, you have to fix them. You can't give them to be like, well, maybe an agent can help me figure it out. You know what I mean? It's like, if you can see the problems, you have to fix them. If you don't see any more problems, that doesn't mean there aren't more problems. There probably are, but it just means like you have taken it as far as you can go. And then like a smart agent or smart editor, it's like, I don't think you really need those scenes. If you're like, oh my God, of course, right? Yeah,
Right, right. And I think in terms of like sometimes you think that you just know, but maybe too, because you were so tight on craft by then,
yeah, yeah.
you could check your craft with the
Mm-hmm.
book. It's like, and sometimes when I'm helping somebody through the revisions in the academy or they're getting to the end, it's like then we get to go back and we get to think like, well, let's look at all your beginnings. Let's look at the
Yeah,
beginning of your
yeah,
chapters, the beginning of their scenes, when you introduce the characters, like all those
yeah,
beginnings, and make sure they're tight. And like, let's look at your
yeah.
frame. Let's look at how time is handled. Let's look at the arc of each character. Let's look at climax. And you
Mhm,
kind of have that vernacular. So
mhm.
you can ask the work that, you know what I mean? We're allowed to do that together because now we share that vernacular. So I think
Exactly.
it's sort of like you're sort of flying by the seat of your pants before that, which is great. It's intuitively really fun, but then you don't have a lot of agency, maybe. So it's very
Yeah,
fascinating. You talk about it. And when you think about like your life from this idea that like, oh, I'm gonna make things up now. I mean, my sense is that it's harder in terms of like accessing the imaginal, but then in some ways it kind of takes you off the hook, right? It's like, oh, well, I don't have to stick to the truth. I can like add this in, or I can make sure that this plot point works because of that. Like, did you feel that it was somehow, even if you don't think of yourselves as like wildly like full of imaginative da-da-das, it still, was it a little easier? Like it got fluid because you switched?
yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, because what I realize, and I even realize it now, like, and you guys probably feel this way too, like I've been like watching people my whole life, right? So as soon as like a character pops into my brain, it's like, oh, I know who she is. It's like that story that your mom told you about like some friend of hers that you've just been like holding on to for like 30 years. You're like, oh my God, remember when she told you about what happened to Sylvie? And you're like, where do I put this? And then you're just like, oh, I'm going to make that character have that like weird thing happen to her. I mean, it's super fun, you know?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it's kind of just like I used to have a post-it above my desk when I was writing because, you know, you get into your head about like, I'm like, whatever, imposter syndrome. Like, I don't really know how to do this, or I can't really figure it out. And I did all these weird things instead of studying writing and all this stuff. And I just had this um, posted on my desk that was like, everything you've done has prepared you for this. Like, it just all goes in. And actually, there was a really funny piece that I just read. I sent it to, I put it to you, Terry, in our studio teachers chat. It was like, a woman who was writing like she was trying to get to work on her novel and she was like fucking around on the internet instead and she was like, oh, put your weird internet obsessions, stick them in the novel, like
Think of
if
it there.
you're yeah, like if you're spending all night like watching, like I watch this like psychotic like influencer, like I'm embarrassed, it's like I look at her all the time. And I don't know if she's going to end up in this novel, but it's like she should be in my novel for the amount of time I waste like um looking at her. But anyway, it's like you just pile it all in, you know? Whatever
Yeah,
you're obsessed with can go in.
yeah, you layer it all in, exactly.
Yeah.
And the whole idea that like the centrifugal force of how we create has to do with this emotional core, I find very interesting because I think when you look at through all genres, you know, like whether we're talking about nonfiction, whether we're talking about the novel, whether we're talking about the how-to, whether we're talking about a screenplay, like in a sense, there is an emotional core that sort of once you start writing, if you have the urgency to write, it starts flinging out scene and flinging out character
Mhm.
description, and you're
Mhm.
just kind of trying to catch it, you know, especially before you have craft. But when you felt that emotional core, what was it like for you in terms of like building the story around it? Like, were you afraid because it had to do with like your mom, it had to do with your childhood, you know what I mean? Like, what
Mhm.
was your, um, like, it
I
was,
was
there was a lot of it, you know, there was a lot of,
yeah. I was never afraid. I felt like anything that I like it felt just like the greatest gift of my life to be able to take a lot of things that I had been thinking about my whole life that I wanted to say that had been hurtful or, you know, upsetting and just like put them on a page in a way where I had total agency over what happened. You know, I don't know. It was like take your broken heart and make it art. Like that was just like I'm so like I just feel like it was fantastic. It was like I was never afraid. I really wasn't.
it's interesting because like one of the things that I love about My Last Innocent Year is that it doesn't have a happy ending.
Mm,
And I mean, you know, it has an ending that we have really,
mhm,
and it doesn't go for the facile. It doesn't go for
mm,
something that's like easy in terms of like
mm,
where she winds up. And it acknowledges, you know, campus rape. It acknowledges these very murky areas where a woman finds her sexual prowess really, but in
mhm,
an inappropriate place, you know, that he's a predator.
mhm,
First he seems
mhm,
sexy and then we realize in retrospect and then we're in the, you know, backdrop
mhm,
of the whole Bill Clinton. And I'm curious, like, did you feel while you were working on it, and I think memoirists think about this a lot, novels, but also people who are writing the how-to and feel like they have to get it all figured out, you know, before
mhm.
they get it to sale. Like, were you feeling like, oh my God, I should have this kind of bow, you know, this like happy bow at the end? Or how did you decide to allow it to be true to life, like sort of a more realist?
Well, I mean, I think that one of the reasons I wanted to explore all these things in fiction was because you can just leave things a little unanswered. Like you can ask questions and not have to answer them. Whereas an essay, um, I feel like you have to sort of arc to meaning. So I wrote a piece like when the book came out for Lit Hub about like a sexual encounter that happened. Oh, No, I
Ooh,
just went all
I just went all
echoey.
echoey.
Do you hear
Do you
that?
hear that? Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know why you're echoing. Terry, do you have
That
a,
is the most annoying thing to hear your own voice.
oh, now you're not.
Now it stopped. That was torture. That was hell. So anyway, um, it was so I had been wanting to write about that experience for years. And then during like Me Too, when everyone was like publishing essays, like I just was like sort of stopped everything and just like tried to write this essay about what had happened to me, and I could not do it. Never did. I could never figure it out because I couldn't figure out what it meant. I couldn't remember what had happened. I didn't know what I wanted to say about it, like where I wanted that story to land. And once I put it in the novel, and the novel is like not what happened to me, but it's like again that emotional core of what it felt like, not what happened, but what it felt like. Like I was like, great. You know what I mean? It's like you can't like in that essay I talk about what's his name? The book Shuggy Bain, which I can't remember his name, the author, but I saw him speak at my local library, and he has written, it's this novel. He's like, it's a novel about my childhood. It is what happened in my childhood. His mother was an alcoholic. He came from impoverished circumstances. His mother died. I mean, it's a very, dark story. And he's like, this is what happened to me. But I'm writing it as a novel because I was a child when it happened. I didn't have access to all the information. I didn't know what my mother was going through. So to write like a memoir, just my 7-year-old vision, um, it wasn't working. So it's like sometimes you have to blow out an experience and write it as fiction to be able to, yes, Shuggy Bain by Douglas Stewart. Yes, yes, yes. So yeah, so if some of you might be working on memoir. Another thing someone told me once, and this is just something one person told me, so take it for what it's worth. You usually only have one memoir in you. Usually, some people have more. Um, you have that one story that you're trying to tell in memoir, and once you do it and you write it and you publish it, it's like, well, what are you going to do now? So if, she said, oh, maybe sometimes it's good to publish that memoir as a novel because now you're a novelist and you can continue to write novels. So anyway, um, I'm not saying that you have to do that, but that was something someone told me once.
I mean, if you look at someone like Augustin Burroughs or Haven Kimmel or,
Yeah.
Mary Carr, they have multiple. I
Yeah.
think
Danny Shapiro is one. Yeah. But you have
Shapiro,
to keep
yeah.
having things happen to you.
Oh
Right.
yeah, or you have little strains in your life, right? That I'm gonna
Mhm.
pluck that strain out, like the
Mhm.
summer I turned 18, or I left home,
Yes.
and then
Yes.
you grieve your husband that died when you were, or prematurely, or so maybe it has to do with more. I think for my understanding of the memoir is a little bit like we're writing into questions. And if we think
Mhm.
we have to write into an argument where we're like
Yeah.
proving something in any
Yeah.
genre, I think then we get a little stuck because
Yeah.
what I love about the book, My Last Innocent Year, is that ability to know that we don't have the answers, that there isn't a
Right.
black and white. We want there to be so badly these very like clear dichotomized lines. But what this work says, and we're talking about that a lot when you're going into your next book too,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, oh, I don't have to know. I just
Mm-hmm.
have to be willing to ask. And
Yeah.
and then I reach into these scenes in order to keep seeking, these answers to these questions that frankly aren't answered yet, that are,
That has not, yeah, that has been my experience of life, right? That it's like a lot of gray areas. And it's kind of yeah, like, yeah, I just think that I like fiction because it can hold all of that. I like that a lot.
yeah, I do too. And I think memoir can too, when we
Yeah.
allow it.
Yes, memoir can too, for
Yeah.
sure.
And the woman that I was talking to today, she was like, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. And then she keeps
Mhm.
also having these fictional scenes. And it is nice to let yourself off the hook if you don't want to make
Mhm.
someone look bad. Or as she was saying, like, gossip on the page. I just love
Right.
that there's this like
Yeah.
flexibility between genres. And I feel like for people that are working on memoir or how to and not the novel. It's like we have to know how to build character in any genre.
For sure.
Right? We have to know how to build a scene. You have to be interested in like the
Hmm.
person across the desk from you. If you're a therapist writing the how-to, it's like, well, build
Hmm.
that scene, show us that scene. So it's interesting that even if you're not reading fiction right now, you're still kind of learning from how
Oh
people.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, good memoir reads like fiction, right? It has scenes. It has you're not inventing dialogue, but you're setting down dialogue. Maybe you're compressing characters. And like
Yeah.
Terry's book, which is a how-to book, Unfollow Your Passion, it has like these beautiful scenes, stories where she's explaining how she came to a conclusion or how she learned a thing through these like wonderful characters, her sisters, her uncle. Yeah, so it's everywhere. Good writing, it exists everywhere.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that we get like very kind of confined by these genres that are so, as you're
Hmm.
saying, gray areaed. And like Emma's saying, it's really fascinating to talk about these, how different genres intersect. You don't have to know.
Hmm.
It's kind of, yeah. I agree. And I think, Emma, that's such a good point to say like that intersectionality of like, what am I learning when I'm learning about craft? I'm learning like all of this craft that can be applied to anything. And it is really, really quite,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a beautiful thing. And Dees, can you tell everybody what you're working on now?
Oh, well, I'm working on another novel that I mean, I was actually just talking to a friend today. Sheena knows her, Caitlin Mullen, who just sold her second novel is coming out. And I was like, I feel like the second novel is like, or the second book is like a really big thing. Like, I'm like, you're like amazing that you were fine that she was able to sell too, because I have all the uh imposter syndrome. Like I only could do it once. I only had one story. And but anyway, she did it. So I was talking to her about that. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think it's Suzanne has read like a very messy draft of it. And it's like a very messy draft right now that I'm reading very slowly and very kindly and just like, oh, that's an interesting thing I just noticed is not really working. And I have to just I think take a big revision. And I have to yeah, I don't want to say too much about the book actually, but I have to be, I think, very structured with my revision. That's my thought right now, and not just like barrel ahead, yeah, with from page 1 to 300. Like I have to be more methodical about it. Yes, the critic Terry says we'll find any opportunity. Yeah, I mean it's like 100%. It's like now instead of being like, oh, someone wrote a novel and I didn't, I'm like, oh no, someone wrote a second novel and I didn't. Like it's just gonna be like it's just endless. So that's why it's just a stupid voice and we don't even.
Yeah. Or you can write it out and answer it, I think,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it has such holographic arguments, that
Yeah.
really stand the test of inquiry. So you can always
Yeah.
write them out.
Right.
They're like, oh, this is what my critic is saying.
Yeah.
This is so funny. I
Yeah.
think I'm going to answer it because it's such
Yeah.
a great novel. It's got the setting, it has the global frame, it has sort of that centrifugal force of those people. So yeah, and then the point of view. You're so good at point of view. I mean, that's one of the things that Vicky's saying. She's saying, I loved Daisy's novel, and I would love to hear her address two things. One, how did she get her main character's voice so true to her age? It's a very hard thing to do. Was that easy? Also, the dialogue between the main character and her paramour, their exchanges are extraordinary. How did you hone that? So that's really good questions of craft, really, I would say.
Yeah. Thank you, Vicky. That's so nice. Yeah, well, in terms of the dialogue, I think I actually really like dialogue. And a lot of times when I start to write anything, sometimes it's just like writing dialogue. So, like with those two characters, I feel like I just wrote like pages and pages of the two of them just talking to each other, almost like a script. That was sort of how I figured out their relationship or figured things out. Um, so dialogue a lot of times comes first for me. Um, like, I notice a lot of times, like, I'll read things and someone's, like, really writing about, like, trees or, like, birds, and I was like, "I never write about trees or birds." Like, I just am not, like, a nature like, I have to, like, force myself to be like, "Is the sun up?" You know? Like, I'm more like, "What are 2 people saying to each other?" is, like, where I kind of live. Um, so that and then I read a lot of stuff out loud. Like, I'm sure you guys do that. Like, I'll just sit and, like, read stuff out loud all the time, and it has to kind of sound right to me. I can almost like see it like, like it's like on a movie, like, them walking around a place and talking to each other almost like in a movie. Um, so that I like writing dialogue. I know some writers I talk to like don't like to write dialogue, but I do. And how I mean the main character's voice, I don't know that I would say it was easy for me, but I think I just like she feels really close to me. Like I don't actually feel that far away from that time. Like I laugh. I was something I was reading today, like when someone was like, "Oh, when I walk on a college campus, I think like, oh, do people think I'm a student here?" And I'm like, "Oh, I always think that. I'm always like, oh, clearly they think I'm a student, you know." So I think I still, yeah, she doesn't feel very far away from me. But what was fun about this novel was like, of course, she is very far away from me, and to be able to like insert, like asides from this POV was fun and, like, cathartic and healing. Like, what would you tell your younger self if you could just, like, dip into that moment and be like, "What the hell are you doing?" Or like, "That was" yeah, later, you're gonna really understand what this meant, but right now, you're just being an idiot. Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, with my last innocent year and the point of view, and sort of, there is, because you wrote it with that idea of the wrapper story of like an
Yeah.
adult, looking back at her college, there is like, there feels like three layers there to me, where it's the author, right? And then it's the narrator inside the work, and then
Mhm.
the narrator looking back at who this
Yes.
person was and is. So they're
Yes.
still seen, but it's almost like the narrator is allowing that scene to happen for us. And then there's some panning out that happens that
Yeah.
like then we get to understand the socioeconomics of it, and like,
Mhm.
and it was her last year. Like I don't think we know that it's our last innocent year until we're looking back. So that
Mhm.
retrospective maybe gave the novel that feeling of like of
Mhm.
complexity really, and heft. And it
Mhm.
just like sometimes people send something that is written kind of from the point of view of an 8-year-old or a 7-year-old, and it's like one of the easiest things you can do is actually go into an older narrator kind of looking back and showing that scene, so you don't have to use the reductive thinking of like being that young and not having the language and stuff. So
Right. Yes. I think I always knew that I think that came from writing essays. That came from like re-examining a time in my life, and it came from, being whatever, like in my like mid to late 40s in the time of, Trump and Me Too and everything. It was like really like every day I was waking up, I was like, "Oh my God, we got to get on the page. Like I got to figure this out. I need to put this somewhere." Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And Days, you took the academy again in order to
Yes.
kind of get the craft again, but also the network. Like it feels like a lot of your community comes from Gateless and from,
Oh, for sure.
and how does that like help your writing life, or how do you guys like work together, you and
I
your
mean, it's amazing. It's like I've said this thing where like when I was young and I was like had like jobs, they'd be like, "Oh, you have to network. You have to like network." And I was like, "I don't know what that means." Like I didn't know what networking meant. It sounded very like corporate, and then when my book was like coming out and I was like talking to people, I was like, "Oh, networking is just like all the friends you made along the way who were like interested in the same things that you were interested in." And that's actually what I've been doing all along. Like, you know what I mean? Like networking sounds so corporate, like, but it's not. It's just like friends you've made along the way. So, I mean, the gate list, I mean, just even the fact that like I can say, to like someone in the gateless community, like, "Oh, my critic is telling me like I don't really count until I've written a second novel." That's like really the proof that I'm a novelist. And they can be like, "Yeah, that's like I know it's bullshit, but like I need to hear like Terry say that to me and I say that to Terry, you know what I mean? I say, and you know, it's just like we get together and we write. Like a lot of times like gateless buddies will be like, I'll meet you on Zoom for an hour and let's just write, and we'll like write together and then read it right out loud. Like, okay, I just wrote, like we'll spend 20 minutes writing and then we'll just read what we just wrote, and I'll be like, I love it. It's incredible. And I'll tell, my gateless friends like how amazing it is. And they do the same for me. And that is like, it is so helpful. I mean, Carrie and I have talked about like even just reading it out loud, even if you get no feedback, um, you writing something and reading it out loud, it like just transforms the work. So,
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
really does. It transforms the work. It's like you can't really see it
yeah,
until you do that. And I think, the academy gave you guys that
yeah.
structure of being able to exchange work, like being in the same pod and.
And the shared language, right? Like,
Yeah,
and the shared understanding. Like, no one's gonna like critique it. We're not like looking to, unless I want that feedback, unless I'm specifically say to Sheena, like, I just need you, like, is this scene where, like, what do you think? And then she'll be like, okay, here's what I think.
yeah.
But otherwise, we're like, nope, nope, only compliments, please. Like,
You need
just
to be,
compliments. Yeah,
but I
yeah.
think
Don't you? Yeah,
guys were exchanging work while you were in the academy. It's like you were never criticizing because you had that craft. So
yeah,
Sheena could say to you like, well, what would happen if you put in global frame, or what would happen
yeah,
if you
yeah, yeah,
kind of
yeah.
got the cast of characters smaller, and it never
Yes,
feels like
yes.
criticism because you're sort of applying that craft.
Exactly, exactly. It's not like, I don't think, it's not like I mean, Terry wrote something in the chats like, be really careful who you share your work with. And I talk to, I talk to writers a lot who are like, and who should I share it with and who should I send to? It's like, I don't, I'm like, find a gateless, come to gateless, because that's like really, I think you can just get crushed. You guys all know that. I'm sure you can all like have an experience, or someone, read something for you and it just crushed you, and then you have to take like 3 months to recover, it's like,
Yeah.
and I don't know why people are doing that. It's like, well, what's in it for them? Right. Like I don't know. So
Yeah, I mean,
I,
I think the problem is that most people aren't trained in crafts, so they don't even
that's right.
mean anything, but it's just not helpful. You know what I mean?
That's right.
If
That's
you're
right.
gonna, if you know craft, then you can say,
Yeah.
"Oh my God,
Yeah.
what would make this dialogue so much probably poppier is
Yeah.
if we take this away, take this away, add gesture, move this
Yeah.
piece over here." Like you're actually kind of like moving the work instead of just, I don't know, I don't
Offering opinion. Yeah. I mean, even when I showed you pages, and you were like, I'm noticing that like these two characters, like they're sort of taking over POV throughout the book. And that's, and I was like, yeah, I know they are doing that. And then you're like, that seems really alive to me and exciting. Why don't you try giving them more? You know what I mean? So it was like, you looked at something and you weren't like, wait, there's like other POVs in here. This is like, you know, like so confusing. I don't know why we're shifting. You were just like, I noticed that that is something that's coming out, and maybe you want to lean into that or try that. And yeah, I think that it's like what I always say about Gateless and you, Suzanne, is like, and I don't know if Laura Belgrade's on the call, but I know she wrote something in an email today or the other day that was like about being like woo adjacent. It's like, I wouldn't say there is like a woo woo, like not woo woo. There is nothing woo woo about this, but like the it can there is like a woo adjacency to this, because when you come, we're very grounded, especially on retreat. You're like getting like Reiki and body work, and like sometimes you have the people with like the singing bowls and all that. And I can like go there, but I would not have stuck with this community for as long as I have if there was not like this, deep and profound grounding in like intellectual rigor in the craft. Like I've learned everything in this community. And that's, yeah, I love to get like my Reiki and like all of that, but it's like it's so grounded, it's so smart. Suzanne is so smart. She's read everything. She understands how books, are put together. Like she can just like, so yeah, that's I think why I love it so much.
I think with the woo woo, like there has to be a reason for me
Yeah.
to have that. And if it's going to actually open the creative
Yes.
brain, then it's
Yes.
interesting to me. But if I'm just
Yes.
sitting there, I'm like, well, what is this actually doing for my life and my art and my
The woo woo, actually, I take it, it's more, it's like because when you write like in salon or when you come to studio, like we ground you in the body and we create this container that's extremely safe and extremely solid so that you can go to crazy places in your work and you don't feel like the feedback you're going to get is going to be like, whoa, that was really weird. It's like you're just going to be like, this was incredible and I love how you went there and you went there, and you're just like you're able to take risks because we're there to hold you.
Yeah.
Nothing there, it's like a watertight container, nothing is gonna like seep in. So in that way it's like you personally are going into like woo woo crazy places, but it is like rigorously guarded. The guardrails are there.
Yeah, 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 that's right. There's like a reason for it. There are guidelines there. Yeah, that's such a good point. That's so funny, woo woo adjacent. I love
Yeah,
Laura is so funny. I
Laura
think
wrote that, I know.
she had some kind of call at the same time, so I don't think she's
That's
here.
okay. That's okay. Yeah.
Maybe she'll listen to it. But
Yeah.
do you guys have other questions? I feel like this is such a good crowd when I look at who's here. And I know some of you are like working on other things or you're trying to work on, fiction or screenplay or whatever. But let us know. So Sheena says the going into the body at the beginning is so important. That's true. When you write, it unlocks pieces that are stuck in your hips. Yeah, exactly. Or your elbow or something like that. I think the writing actually comes from the body, right? It comes from the five senses. It comes from our grounded experience of living this life. So when you're able to go in the body, that's where the stories are. It's like ground yourself in a time, place, and then right from there. Sheena Cook does a lot of she's a novelist. She just had like I don't know, like a triple book deal or something. She's also been in the academy several times. But she does a lot of our body work at retreat. So she really knows the body as part of like how we move from the body into the landscape of writing, whatever genre that is. Oh, two book deal. Okay, well that's good. Two.
Well, it's 2 books, UK, US, we can call it 3.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And congratulations, Sheena, also fiction writer. And she's going to be one of our luminaries for the Gateless Academy this year. So you guys will meet her if you're coming along on that ride. So what else do you guys have to ask? I'm going to look and see. Um,
There's a question here from Janelle.
oh, that's such a good question.
Yeah,
Did you
yeah,
keep the dialogue between your characters flowing without losing the moment, like stopping
yeah.
after an hour to be? Okay, what do you say?
Well, Janelle, are you with us in Must Read? I can't remember. I'm sorry. I know you're in studio, but so in Must Read, we're just we're reading this book, The Safe Keep, and there's like a page in that book where like I was noticing it, like she does that. It's like a intense scene of a brother and a sister talking to each other, but there are like these um blocks in between each line that's like one is like noticing something that's outside and one is like a memory from childhood, and I've noticed it. So one of the things I do a lot is like I steal from other writers, right? Like that page I noticed because I'm like, that's really interesting. It does slow the dialogue down, right? It's like it takes us a whole page to get um to the end of this conversation, but I feel like that's like a feel thing, I mean, I don't know that there would be like a strict rule. Like sometimes, again, the reading it out loud, You notice a lot, like, oh, this is, and also if it's like intense, if there's like an intense conversation, sometimes you want that to happen faster. Like you don't want your reader to have to wait, or you want to slow it down a little bit, right? It's like you're kind of always noticing the pacing, like where is something speeding up and where is something slowing down. And you kind of like you play with it. Your instincts are probably like telling you what to do. I don't know. I'm not really answering that question because I don't know that there's like a hard and fast rule except just notice what other writers do. Like I sort of pay attention to that a lot when I'm reading, which is why I'm not like reading novels right now because sometimes like reading novels I can get too much in my own head, like oh, like noticing things and I don't get as lost in the flow. That's just like a thing that I'm feeling right at this moment. But yeah, you try it different ways, you know?
Now, are you talking about the characters stopping after an hour to pee? Or are you talking about yourself? Like, are you talking about you as a writer losing momentum? Can you put that in there? Um, because I think, with dialogue, what you want to think about, right, is cutting the ends off that dialogue. So when you're thinking of how we're talking, it's like that's not craft, right? That's not for the novel or the memoir or the how-to, right? For the novel, um, it's like you're cutting the ends off. So you do kind of just go for it, even if you have to like get up and pee or whatever. It's like Daisy said about writing those scenes between
Mhm,
those two characters. You kind of want to write a lot because then you're going to start to understand how they react to each other and their chemistry. And then
mhm,
what you do is once you have all of that, pick out like, ooh, this is going to move my story forward. This
mhm,
part of the dialogue is going to actually tell the reader something they don't have, and it's also going to move the plot forward. But all of this was just for me to know how these two kind of interact. So you're actually writing a little bit more than you're ever going to need. And then you're finding like, oh, this is where it has energy. And that's why gateless feedback does that, right? It's like, oh, this is where it's strong. This is what I heard. This is what I loved. And then all of the other starts to go away, but you still need it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, even if you get up to pee and you come back and you eat lunch and you come back, you're like, oh, they're still here. What else are they saying? How else are they interacting? What if I ask them to talk about religion? What if
mhm,
I ask them to talk
mhm.
about sex? What if like just get them going and then you'll know, like, okay, this is the part, right, Days? Did you say?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Dialogue, like, you always want it to have a purpose, right? Like,
Yeah.
what's the everything is like an inten is intentional. Like, why do
Yeah.
I have this conversation now? What information is being conveyed?
Sarah, we never start with an outline or structure for the.
Well, yeah, I mean, I some people do, I definitely did not. I always like you kind of like think so I think there are people who maybe do if you're writing something that needs to be like a mystery, right? Like something that's like a like I don't, but I definitely did not. Um it just kept changing. I didn't even know exactly what scene would open the book until probably 6 months before I was done with it. I was always starting in a different place, and then once I figured that out, then the book kind of fell together, but that was again just through, like, trying different things.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I think that if you start with the outline, what can happen is the author is then controlling the work instead of
mm,
allowing the characters to sort of show you where the story is. And what happens when the author controls the work is that the reader isn't that surprised. It's like whatever we do up here to outline, the reader probably is doing that same thing in the inside their head
mhm,
about story. They're like, oh, I know where that's going. But when you let the characters choose kind of how the work goes, they surprise you. And then when you're surprised, your reader's going to be surprised. And in fact, the element of surprise is the number one reason people turn the page because they're like,
mm,
oh, I never expected that to happen. Oh my God, she's going to kiss him. Like, what?
Mhm.
Like, oh my God, that's a murder, like, so you're actually letting it kind of go. And then you may have to have that outline, right? Days and so then Sheena too, like to structure out the formulaic way, like a crime novel or a mystery novel. But you want the characters to surprise you. You want them to act in almost erratic ways in order that
Yeah.
you're gonna want to get back to the desk too. It's like if you write that outline, it's like now I have to go. Now what is happening in my outline? Oh yeah, write the scene about the clown. What else is going? Oh yeah, I have to write that. You know what I mean? It's not that interesting. But when you
I
let
mean, and yeah, and I've always found that like when I do like when I've written more, right? And I have like a lot, and now I'm like, okay, let me try and like get this like in more of an order, like more outline. As soon as I get on the page and I start typing, it's like immediately veer off the outline. I'm like, oh my God, I already left the outline. You know what I mean? It's like
yeah,
something happens when you're like, it's like walking on the ground. Like if I had to like walk from here to California, like charting the course over with a plane, is not really going to tell me what it's like to actually like put one foot in front of the other and make it all the way to California. There's going to be a lot of surprises along the way. Even if I know the route,
yeah.
I'll be like, oh, I have to step over this rock, and oh, there's a snake, and like, it started raining and I have to keep veering off. So
Yeah, yeah, I love that analogy. That's beautiful. Um, and then Pam is talking about, writing a memoir that reads like fiction, which is great, and then just calling it fiction. There are elements, you guys, that are very different from memoir and fiction, right, Days? Because it's like memoir
yeah,
have the heft of truth behind it. Fiction, you
yeah.
have to get that arc in there. You have to get time in the circular structure. You got to know how to do fictional scene. Like there's an actual craft to each of these genres that we talk about that all the time in the academy. Like if you're doing this in memoir, you do this. If you're doing this in the novel, you do that. If you really want to know the difference. You can't just turn a memoir into fiction. And even Crush, like when she talks about that book, she'll talk about how she moved it into the fictional frame and she used absolute craft to do that, right, Days?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't read that book, but my sense is like that it is memoir. But yeah, I think there are a lot of like, I mean, I think there are probably psychological reasons and you know what I mean, like that she did that. But yes, I haven't read it, but I would think it's more, is it maybe more like auto fiction, which is like a whole, I'm not even going to begin to speak about auto
But when
fiction,
she
but
talks about Crush, she'll
yeah,
say, like, I couldn't go in these directions
right,
because they
right,
weren't true. It was sort of boring.
right,
The memoir
right,
was boring.
right,
And then I
right.
fictionalized it so that I could have, like how we're
Yeah,
always talking about, like, push the reader, push the
yeah,
characters,
yeah, yeah.
layer them. If you're going to do fiction, you don't have truth anymore. So you've got to like push them to the edge, see what they're going to do. And she talks a lot about that when she talks
But
about.
I think you can do that. Like if you have a story, Pam, that is like essentially memoir, but you want to publish it as fiction, like you can 100% do that. Like, and maybe it gives you like a little, I don't know, like a little more freedom to make people crazier or like introduce like, like an earthquake that might like help, know what I mean? Like some big thing that might like shake up the whole story in a way that's really fun.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly. Fiction is like shaking it up, layering it in, pushing. So you don't want to
Hmm.
just take the
Hmm.
memoir and then pretend it's not. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? You do want to know how to do the fictional arcs and all that. It's
Mm,
important. But
mm,
absolutely, you can take that foundation. It's such a good idea because then it has that emotional heart, like we were talking about
mhm,
before. Let's see. There was another really good one. Oh yeah, here it is, Heather. Hi Heather. How did
mm,
you decide to share your main character Isabel's life beyond the final year
mm,
of
mm.
college? Was that a plan all along? As I'm working on my novel, I'm trying to figure out if I want to do that, and have my narrator look back.
Oh my God. Thank you for, okay. So one of the things I will say about that is that when I was originally writing the novel, I had two timelines. It was like Isabel in her 40s, like coming back to campus, and you know what I mean? Like kind of that sort of trope, and so we sort of cut back and forth between the two timelines. so I did that for a really long time. And then it ultimately, like, I ended up cutting that whole timeline because it wasn't really working basically. But I had like all that information. So like I knew exactly where Isabel was. Like I had this whole life that I had built out for her. So I ended up putting that in the last chapter, and that was probably the easiest chapter I wrote. Like I probably wrote that chapter really fast because I just like had all that information. I will say I love that chapter. I really felt like I wanted to leave Isabel in a place. Like, I wouldn't say she's like, some people are like, she's divorced and she had an affair. And like, so she's maybe not like in like whatever, like a perfect place, but I was like, I think she's in a pretty good place. And, and I wanted to be like, you can go through things, like things can happen to you and you survive. So it was really important to me to like have that there. But I will say some reviews were like, she didn't need that last chapter. Like it detracted. My Kirkus review was like, except for the last chapter. So I was like, you know what? I don't know. But I liked it. So thank you for also. So I don't know. I think about that sometimes, like, would I do that again? Not like I'm listening to critics, but it's like, like it was a choice, and maybe the novel would have worked without it. But I feel like we would have left Isabel so like at sea in a way,
Yeah.
you know? I didn't
Yeah.
want to leave her at sea. I wanted to be like, you can survive things.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, there's things we don't survive, but I think it's like, women just like they just keep going, right? It's like, yeah.
And I think the wrapper story, right, which is what this is structurally, it's a wrapper story. When you have that wrapper of like, okay, this person is grown up and
Hmm.
they're looking back, the wrapper story can add that like look back that we were talking about before. And then we kind of trust that narrative
Hmm.
so much because we know that they've had distance. And it also moves us into an audience that's a little bigger when we sell, right? So it can
Yeah,
people who are in college age. It can sell to
right.
people who just graduate. It can sell to us, who are looking back at that time in the 90s. So it's like I thought it was a really good choice for that.
Yeah, there are a couple of books, like there's a book called Marlena by Julie Bunton, that kind of does that cutting away. It's like a story mostly about like a 15-year-old girl. And then there are these like chapters that get interspersed of her as like an older person. So that was one of the ones that I looked at. Um, and then what's it called? The Girls by Emma Klein. It kind of starts with the girl who's kind of like a Manson girl. It's like starts with her as like a middle-aged woman and then reflects back on her time as a Manson girl. So those are ones that um, do that kind of. And I think Marlena, I had heard from someone that the reason she added in these mature scenes was because an editor said, oh, if it's just about a 15-year-old girl, it's going to read YA.
Yeah,
So,
that's true.
like,
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah, and I
That's how
know
I'm doing.
when we were reading, Daisy and I often read books together, and we read a lot of books during one time of like people looking back, like My Dark Vanessa and Notes on a Silencing, which was
Yeah.
a but it's so interesting to see how people are handling it. So Janelle's asking, does the description come to you as you're writing, or do you like put it in later?
I do a lot later. Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah,
do a lot later. Yeah.
yeah.
I do a lot like, we'll fix it later. What are they like? Fix it in post. Yeah. Because
Yeah.
everything can get fixed.
Yeah, you can layer it in. And it's sometimes like it comes, right? It seems like it comes in a rush, that first draft, and you
Yeah.
just follow it and get it. And then you go back and you're like, what kind of cars were they driving in the 90s? And what music was on the
Yeah.
radio? And yeah, it's
And sometimes I'll be like, oh, I think I wrote like the trees was a big thing. Like I'm talking about the trees. Like I would be like, I think I wrote about the trees like in another scene. So maybe I can just like steal one of those lines and give it over here so I don't have to come up with another like tree thing. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Oh my God. I feel like I've kept you for a long time, love. It's like 10 after already,
I
but
know. I just have to, I have my, like, we have
You
We have
have
to
your
go
dinner.
somewhere. Yeah, I know, I know.
I'm so grateful. I love talking to you so much.
I
And people
mean,
are so excited for this call because everybody just loves you and loves your work and loves how you talk about writing. And it
oh,
was
thank you. I
amazing.
love doing it. Thank you guys. Thanks for coming and thanks, Suzanne. And yeah, I recommend the Gateless Academy and it's like
Oh, yeah.
it'll change your life
Yeah, yeah. We'd love to
in
have
the best
anyone
ways.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun to talk about the Academy today and absolutely
Yeah.
questions about it. Let me
Yeah.
know. But Daisy, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you guys.
It was great. Have fun at your dinner. And you guys, if you
Thank you
have
guys. Have
questions
a great
that
time.
didn't
Good
get answered,
trip.
yes,
Yeah.
let me know if you have questions that didn't get answered
Yeah.
just now. And yes, I'll
Exactly.
have a great time on my trip. I'm just about to leave for California. Love you, Days. Thank you. Thank you,
Love you
sweetheart.
guys.
Love you
Bye.
guys. Thank you for
See
coming.
ya.
Bye. Mwah.